investors. The market went up like crazy. It was kind of a great day for stock, and I was happy about that. Let's see, Amani. Hey, Amani, how are you? Amani is from our support team. She will answer any questions that you have. As you all know, in the Black Business School, we have outstanding support and people that really believe in the cause of what we're doing, the cause of Black economics, Black wealth, everything else. We are kicking butt and taking names, and we are not playing. And we're not just here for intelligent Black people. We're just here for serious Black people. So if you are serious about changing conditions and making our community better, then we are your type of people. And so anyway, so Dr. Anderson in his book, which is the Black History Reader, which you can get a copy at powernomics.com. This week, he actually has a section on a couple of interesting things. One that I'm going to read a section about building the capital, how much Black people did to actually build the nation's capital. And also, I wanted to actually start the conversation by talking about what I refer to as the economics of whiteness. And now, why would I bring that up? Well, I bring this up because I was involved in this interesting debate. Y'all know me. Sometimes I get in the middle of internet shenanigans and having fun and debating people on topics, especially things that relate to Black economics in ways that we don't even know. And I saw Dr. Dre mentioned that Eminem was the greatest rapper of all time, or something like that. And he said, "Yeah, a lot of people are going to have a problem with Eminem being named the greatest rapper of all time because he's white." And I don't know if you agree with that or not. I'm not here to debate, nor am I qualified to determine who the best rapper is of all time. But I can talk about some things that I've noticed in terms of why that's really just not a fair question, or fair comparison, period. That literally comparing a Black rapper or Black entertainer to a white entertainer is like comparing, apples and oranges. And so first thing I'll say when it comes to Eminem is I happen to think Eminem's really talented. I think he's a really good rapper and he is really great at what he does. And if you disagree, that's fine. Again, I'm not here to debate about rappers. I do know a lot of rappers, but I'm not one. So, but but here's the thing I want you to kind of process, and this is something that will help you understand the nature of how much wealth is stolen from the Black community through entertainment, and also how we sort of enter when you look at the entertainment space. Black people are entering into really what I would consider to be an unfair playing field in the first place. When you are white, let me ask you all a basic question, the economic consciousness question. Yes or no? Yes or no? Would you agree with me if I say that there are far more white people in America than there are Black people? Would you agree? Do we agree that there's maybe 7 to 8 times more white people in America than there are Black people? Give me a yes if you agree with that assessment, that there are far more white people in America than Black people, or at the very least that there's a lot more of them than us. How about that? All right. So April says no, she does not agree. Okay. Clarence says yes. Nellie says yes. Okay. And even if you disagree, then maybe we can debate how many white people there are in America, but I think that there are quite a few. And then we haven't got to immigrants and stuff. We could talk about that later. All right. So here's the thing. When you're talking about entertainment, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that people who are determined to be the best entertainers, people who win Oscars and Grammys and get acknowledged, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all that, we think that that's based on talent. Like we really do. We make the mistake of thinking that people become successful because they're the most talented. And I think that that is at best half the story, and at worst maybe 10% of the story. What people forget, and they maybe don't know because they're never trained on this, they're not trained on economics, is that fame is actually a manufactured product. You manufacture fame the same way you manufacture mayonnaise or sneakers or butter knives. You can manufacture fame by simply taking this person, it could be a singer, dancer, actress, whatever, and package them up in a way that's relatable to their target audience and make them into a consumer product that people digest. Like Beyonce is a product. She's a product just like Coca-Cola, just like Nike sneakers, just like Hellman's mayonnaise, whatever, right? And so different products resonate with audiences in different ways. And so what some people don't understand is they'll talk about something like, for example, we know Elvis Presley, who Eminem's been compared to. Elvis Presley was a guy, basically he was a white guy who took a bunch of Black dances and a bunch of Black, performance criteria and a bunch of styles that we created in our community, and then he just did it as a white guy. And next thing you know, Elvis is he's known as the king of rock and roll. But he wasn't really the king of rock and roll because there were black people doing it long before him. We know this. What was the difference? What was the difference? The difference was marketing, right? Elvis had millions of dollars put into marketing him as a package, as a product to the target audience. And who's the target audience? Well, it wasn't really us. It's not really us. And so when somebody asks me, do I think that Eminem is the best rapper or do I agree with Dr. Dre? I said, well, let's start with the basics. I know Dr. Dre is he's a businessman and he understands money. And as a businessman who understands money, he understands what's marketable and what's not, right? He also, as a businessman, probably understood that when he signed Eminem, that Eminem's whiteness will make him far more marketable than a black artist with the same amount of talent. Give me a yes if you agree, or if you can at least hear that argument that if Eminem were black, it would have been a very different transaction than if with Eminem white. If Eminem is black, it's like, oh, another talented black rapper. Okay, we got another Tupac, we got another Jay-Z, we got another Biggie, we got another whatever, another Nas, right? But when Eminem comes along and he's rapping on the same level as the Jay-Z's and the T.I.'s and the Biggies and the Nas's, it's like, oh my God, Lord Jesus, this is so amazing. Why? Well, because it's rare. It's like Larry Bird shows up, kick-ass basketball player. Larry Bird was a bad boy. If you watch Larry Bird, he was amazing. But, the black community, we had about 20, 30 guys we can compare to Larry Bird, right? There is no white version of a Shaquille O'Neal. There is no white version of a Michael Jordan. There isn't even a white version of a Tracy McGrady. You all may not even know who Tracy McGrady is. I don't think there is a white Dwight Howard. There's not a white Kobe Bryant. There's not. There's not. There's not a white Muhammad Ali. There's not a white Mike Tyson. None of that, right? So there's something special about black athletes. But if a white guy shows up as ferocious and as talented as a Mike Tyson, then he would be 10 times uh, more recognized and paid than the Mike Tyson. Why? Well, because he has a larger addressable market. It's all about marketing. So the business lesson I want to lay out for you, the financial consciousness exercise I want us to understand is that it's really very difficult to compare a black artist and a white artist if you don't strip away all the marketing. But even then, it becomes highly ambiguous because a lot of the marketing occurs largely because that person was even able to stand out from the pack. We don't even know if Eminem were a black guy and he just shows up to Dr. Dre's office as yet another talented black rapper. We don't even know if he would even have gotten signed. Well, because you can't disentangle the financial side of entertainment with the artistry side. It's all connected. It's all connected. Do you understand? Do you get what I'm saying? Or like Beyonce versus Taylor Swift. You can't compare the two. You can't say Taylor Swift is more successful than Beyonce just because she sold more records or had more people come to her concert or made more money. Because Taylor Swift's addressable market is far bigger than Beyonce's addressable market. Just like you can't compare me, Boyce Watkins, you can't compare me to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a smart guy about the same age as me. I respect him, but I'm a pretty smart guy and I'm the same age as Elon. But we're different. He's a white guy that was able to go to white people at banks and borrow $10 billion. I would have a hard time borrowing $10 billion, but if I was sitting in a room with Elon Musk going toe to toe based on intellect, I would not in the least feel the tiniest bit intimidated by any of that. In fact, maybe he would be the one that would be intimidated. I have no idea. So my point is to say that, and also the goals are different. Our addressable markets are different. His addressable market might be the whole free world or all the people that, that use AI and technology and drive Teslas. My addressable market is like intelligent black people who want to plan for the future, which is kind of a niche on top of a niche on top of a niche. Because I don't even address all black people. Stupid black people that come in the chat, I just quietly block them and tell them to go away because I don't want to deal with people that want to go backward. I just don't. I ain't got time for buffoonery. I'm trying to be serious here. Okay. So the point is to say that When you get into these conversations about who's the best, you have to avoid having what I refer to as a white supremacist conversation. The white supremacist conversation is one where white people automatically by default get seen as being better or greater or more significant because they had more of a capital base. This is where money comes into play. My PhD's in money. I think about money all the time and how money is applied to create perceptions and to create power and to create propaganda. So you apply money. Money cannot just empower you. We know money can empower you, but money's also powerful enough to confuse the hell out of you. Money is powerful enough to make you think up is down and down is up. Money is powerful enough to make you think that the least talented person is the most talented. What's an example? Well, I just saw this rapper. Has anybody ever seen? Give me a yes if you've seen that rapper. Her name is Suki Hana. Has anybody seen Suki Hana? Suki, her nickname is Suki with the good nookie. Anybody seen Suki? Suki Hana, give me a yes if you've seen Suki Hana. If you haven't seen her, don't do it. It's like looking at Medusa in Clash of the Titans, where you look at Medusa and your face turns into stone, or you look at it one time and you just can never look away, right? That's what it is. So if you haven't seen her, consider yourself blessed. I'll just describe her to you so that I will warn you never to look at her if you ever hear her name anywhere. So Suki Hana was performing at this concert called Rolling Loud. And I was watching Suki Hana get on the stage on Rolling Loud. And in the lyrics, first thing she's talking about is um her vagina literally comes up as the topic of conversation in the first half of a verse. The literally first verse, first line, something about her vagina and some other string of raunchy words that I'm not gonna repeat at all because some of y'all bring your kids. So I'm not trying to traumatize your children. Just know that it's like it makes Cardi B blush. It makes Cardi B look like Michelle Obama or Mother Teresa. So Suki Hana's up there just being as raunchy as a woman can be, degrading herself in every way imaginable, behaving in ways that would just make you sad if your daughter decided she wanted to be like that. And I was watching her perform, but she's treated like she's important. She has security guards around her, and she's probably making money for this performance. And I'm looking at the crowd. I'm looking at the crowd. And also Sexy Red, that's another one that you shouldn't go look up, but she was there too. And I looked at the crowd, and the crowd's going crazy. They're rapping along with the lyrics, which are just really raunchy. And it's mostly white people. Mostly white people. And they're giving her like this "you go girl" energy, like, yeah, we like you because you be liberating us and you be like really telling it like it. And and it made me think about some things, right? It made me think about entertainment even further in terms of having you understand that entertainment, the racism of entertainment creates a special space for the black woman that isn't that white women, that they don't put white women in that space. You'll never hear Taylor Swift rapping or singing like Suki Hana. Taylor Swift does not have to do Suki Hana stuff in order to make $1 billion or to make her money. And there is no white version of Suki Hana. So effectively, what I think that we don't understand, and this is where money can confuse you, because sometimes money, giving lots of money to a person and you thinking that that person is successful, it's like putting perfume on a pig, or it's like taking a big ball of manure and spraying a special rosy scent on it and putting a golden bow on it and putting it in a Gucci box, and you think you've got something valuable when really you've just got a turd in a box, right? So sometimes you get these turd in a box performers that receive all this money, all this notoriety, and all this fame when all they're doing is performing a minstrel show. All they're doing is doing the kind of performance that is preserved for black people, but wouldn't be interesting if it were being done by a white person. There is no white version of a Suki Hana. There is no white version of a Sexy Red. The white Sukis and the white Sexies, they're out there. I'm sure there are white women that want to be ratchet too, but they can't get paid to be ratchet because they don't fit the stereotype. The stereotype of the white female is this pure, pristine, glorious, angelic figure that cannot be touched by anyone, Remember last week we were reading from Dr. Claude Anderson's book where he explained that how black people 100 years ago could get lynched for simply looking at a white woman in the eye, for asking for a white woman's hand in marriage, for playing games with a white woman, getting sassy with a white woman, like all these things, right? So because the white female's image is up here, but the black woman's image is down here, then the market is like when they see Sukihana rapping about her vagina and all the horrible sexual things she would do in exchange for a bag of Doritos, they say, "Oh yeah, we'll pay for that." There's marketing with that. We'll give that our attention because you're fitting the stereotype that we have of black women. So then what happens is, and this is where the money creates the illusion. Money can be the devil. Money can really be the devil if you don't know how to understand. If you don't understand the way I do, I need y'all to understand this. I'm all for financial empowerment, but money can be the devil because what happens is that then she gets all this money and then she's going to public schools with little black girls saying, "Oh, this is how you become successful." Suki's successful. My teacher, all she does is feed us every day, educate us, teach us to have self-esteem, protect us, and make sure that we're going to grow up to be healthy. But there ain't no money in healthy black people. There ain't no money in keeping black people healthy. But there's plenty of money made available by those who control the money in this country, and you know who they are. There's plenty of money made available for anything that is black and toxic. So next thing you know, you have people that are in the unfortunate position of having to compromise their values so they can fit in to a sick, toxic culture that has been artificially manufactured by money. So this is what I would refer to as the economics of whiteness. I need y'all to understand how the strategic application of capital, aka money, is utilized to really keep you in the cultural basement, to really keep things going the way America was intended. And you have to fight against that. It's really hard. You have to be able to ignore the shiny stuff. You have to be able to look at the substance of things. You have to look at character over just a person's skin color or how much money they have. It's hard to do. Most people can't do it. I'm gonna tell you, most people can't do it. Most people are gonna look at a Sukihana and say, "Oh, that's a successful black woman." Ain't nothing successful about going around the country spreading STDs to children or whatever. I mean, she literally raps about stuff that involves children that's sexual, which is just crazy to me. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. It's just kind of a financial lesson. Sometimes I like to start off our conversation with stuff that is on my mind. And that was on my mind. I just saw this thing with Suki at Rolling Loud, and I said, God, if I was a black woman, I'd be ready to punch a hole in the wall because I see so many intelligent black women out here that are living their lives with dignity, with purpose, that are highly skilled at what they do. And they're on Instagram too. They're giving legal advice or they're giving therapeutic advice, or they're talking about how to be a better mother. And but yet society, there's a part of society that only celebrates the absolute worst and most embarrassing images of black women. And the same thing happens with black men. I sat there and I watched a bunch of gangster rappers get a star on Hollywood, and I said, "Isn't that interesting that we have more appreciation and respect for gangster rappers than we do for doctors, lawyers, engineers, thinkers, teachers, and scholars?" And it's not the fault of the gangster rapper. I mean, they're gonna just be what God made them into. But you got to look at what white supremacy is funding. Where are they putting their money? That which you invest in is that which grows. So when they're planting their capital, it's like watering a flower. They water the stereotypical flower, and the stereotypical flower grows. Why? Well, because the addressable market, which in many cases is white people, they enjoy seeing a black man showing up as a gangster much more than they enjoy seeing a black man showing up as a scientist or as an accountant or as an attorney. So that's why you have this parade of little black boys that all grow up and want to be rappers and basketball players and football players, which is an absolute death trap economically speaking. So what's the solution to this? Well, first, hopefully part of the solution is consciousness and awareness. You got to be aware of the problem before you can fix it. The second is when you're making these investments for your family, when you are getting off the plantation psychologically, and you are building your family legacy, and you're developing it with a type of integrity where you really know who you are and you have enough courage and self-esteem to stand on that no matter what the rest of the world is doing, then what you're doing is you're creating an alternative capital base that we can lean on that will reward our children for doing the right things. We have to have spaces and places and contexts and infrastructure that will applaud the little black boy as much when he makes good grades on his report card as we do when he can dunk a freaking basketball. I will never cheer for a kid more for dunking a basketball than I will for a kid who made an A on his math test. And I will not tolerate anybody in our community making fun of that kid because he wants to make an A on his math test. Making the A on the math test is going to do a whole lot more for his life than his ability to dunk a basketball. And it's very important that we know the difference. All right. So anyway, let me jump into this book. I'm going to open up Dr. Claude Anderson's book. Just a couple of FYIs. This week in the Black Business School, we got a lot of good stuff going on. This weekend, Dr. Lene Javette, who's one of our faculty, is hosting the Black Power Her conference. Black Power Her, get it? Her. And it's for it's run by women, and she's bringing in powerful women that you will never see on TV, but these women are making millions of dollars and kicking butt and taking names. And it's going to be this weekend. And if you want to get an invitation, just get onto the text list. Just text the word money to 87948. If you text money to 87948, I will send you a link to join the Black Power Her conference this weekend. Text money to 87948. Second of all, Ace Chapman also is coming in. Ace Chapman will be here Friday. He is known throughout the world for acquiring businesses with no money down. It's a massive market that most people don't know about. Ace is the best at this. And so he's joining us in the Black Business School to show you how to do that. He's having an event on Friday night at 8 o'clock. Again, if you text money to 87948, I will send you a link to join that. Third, we've got a guy named Michael Edwards who helped us create the thank you, Veronica. Veronica says Ace was great this morning. Yeah, we brought Ace in this morning for financial consciousness training, which is what we do every single morning at 10 a.m. So again, get on the list, text money to 87948. I'll send you an invitation. Third, Michael Edwards helped us create the B1 Forex Academy. If you want to trade Forex, Michael is the guy that can show you how to do that. That's going to be Friday at 7. So you might have to jump from Michael to Ace. So because we had to have them around the same time. Fourth, on Thursday, Dr. Christina Parks, who has a PhD in cell and molecular biology, who is world famous for standing up during the pandemic and really bringing health information to the community. She's going to be doing an event Thursday night at 8 o'clock ish. And so in the chat, Amani's in there. She can get you the link to join that. And also, again, if you're on the text list, I'll send you a link to join that as well. So we got a lot of stuff going on in the Black Business School. That's the point. And then I didn't even talk about the stuff my wife and I do on Tuesday nights. We do the Love and Money Lab. So if you're interested in money and relationships, we'll send you an invitation to join that too. So every single day we have something awesome in the Black Business School because we are better than whatever university you attended because they didn't understand anything about Black wealth, whereas we understand everything about it. All right, so what I'm going to do is read to you from Dr. Claude Anderson's book, and his book is called The Black History Reader. You can get a copy of this book at powernomics.com. Dr. Claude Anderson, in case you don't know, is a national treasure. His books should be must-reads for every person in our community. We don't need white people to educate us. We can educate ourselves. So remember last time, he ended with the myth of Abraham Lincoln, this lie that somehow Lincoln freed the slaves. And he explains that no, Lincoln didn't want to free nothing. Lincoln, he didn't want to free not one single black person. But we give him credit because we love worshiping tall white people with beards. And it says here that the best known myth about Abraham Lincoln is that his Emancipation Proclamation actually ended legalized slavery and freed millions of black slaves, which is totally untrue. When Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil War was still in progress, and his pronouncement had no authority in the South, which had seceded from the Union. He did have authority in the North and bordering states, but this Emancipation Proclamation did not apply to those slaves. So he did not free the slaves in the northern states and the border states. He only freed the slaves in the South because he had no authority to free the slaves in the South. In reality, then, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free slaves anywhere in this country. Not until the Civil War was over and the 13th Amendment was ratified did the entire nation accept the reality that institutionalized slavery had officially ended. Venerating the myth rather than the reality keeps black folks feeling obligated to Lincoln as their great savior. One of the nation's best kept secrets is that the northern states abandoned the newly freed slaves and allowed the southern states to recast them into Jim Crow semi slavery for another 100 years. So we went through hell because the North abandoned us. They claimed to free us and then they abandoned us, no differently from the Vietnam War and the fall of Saigon. If you look up the fall of Saigon in the Vietnam War, that was very similar to what happened after slavery. The fall of Saigon was where we got the Vietnamese all pumped up, thinking they were going to fight the North with our help, and we gave them weapons and soldiers, and then we decided we were bored and we didn't want to play with that toy anymore, so we abandoned Vietnam, and the people in the South who believed that the United States was going to have their back suddenly were left defenseless, and the Viet Cong were going through the streets of Vietnam and Saigon, killing entire families and shooting people in the head in front of their wife and children. That was what happened then. So this is why, if you want to know why I don't trust nobody, why I don't believe we have any allies, it's because the same thing that happened with the fall of Saigon is exactly what happened in the South. I'm talking kind of fast. Let me know if you're able to follow what I'm saying. Give me a quick yes and let me know you're following, because when I get hyped, I just do this. I'm sorry, I just can't. I hope that's okay. All right, so the fall of Saigon is similar to the fall of Black people after slavery. After slavery, we got abandoned. They abandoned us. They completely left us to the whims of the people in the South. So the KKK is rolling up on your house, shooting people, lynching people, cutting your uncle's testicles off, all this other stuff. The North didn't do nothing. So when you tell me we got all these freaking allies out here, my question is where? I don't see any allies anywhere, because this don't sound like an ally to me. An ally does not let you sit around and struggle like that. Just like I told our middle child, she was late to school last week because one of her homegirls was supposed to pick her up, and then the homegirl said, "I'm sorry, I can't pick you up because I got to get to school on time and I don't want to be late too." And I said, if that was your homegirl, she would have been late with you, right? I don't understand how she could be your friend and just leave you stranded like that. Well, the same thing is true for Black people. If somebody leaves you stranded, that is not your friend. All right, so let's keep going. Until the present time, neither the spirit of Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation nor the original intent of the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which required that whites lift the legacies of slavery from blacks, has been adhered to in this nation's public policies. After centuries of marching to the Lincoln Memorial, Black Americans are still a hated outgroup that mistakenly views Abraham Lincoln as one of the great emancipators and saviors of Black people. Isn't that wonderful? Okay. Question 31, page 99, The Black History Reader. Again, this book is at powernomics.com. Pay your kids like $20 to read a Dr. Anderson book. It'll be the best investment that you ever made in your life. That's why I believe in bribing. You just give them a little bit of money to make them do stuff like this. And one day they'll thank you when they're 40. All right. So Black people were the backbone of labor in America and built both the White House and the U.S. Capitol buildings. So he says, what role did Black slaves play in building the U.S. Capitol? They also built everything from plantation mansions to government buildings to university campuses. How many of y'all knew this? That a lot of your campuses were built by Black people. Atop the dome of the Capitol stands the Statue of Freedom in the figure of a female warrior dressed in a star-festooned helmet and flowing robes. Jefferson Davis, Secretary of War during President Pierce's administration, oversaw construction. He opposed the original design of a woman wearing a French Revolutionary's Liberty cap. Secretary Davis was concerned that the Liberty cap on the statue might inspire the slaves, many of whom built the Capitol, to seek freedom and revolt. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all catch that? So Jefferson Davis, who was the Secretary of War, he oversaw the construction of the Capitol. Black people were doing the work, as we always do. We love to work for white people. We still do. We still do a lot of the work. And he said that they took the Liberty cap. He said that he opposed the original design of a woman wearing a French Revolutionary's Liberty cap. So apparently this Liberty cap he felt was going to inspire the slaves to want to be free. How about that? Interesting. So this is what happens. In order to keep you enslaved, they keep you ignorant. I was just talking to a mother who's in our Prime program, and I was explaining to her stuff to do with her stocks and how she could generate income and all that. And she said the only unfortunate thing that bothers me is that I've had this job for all this time and I never knew about any of this, and nobody ever taught me any of this. And I said, yeah, there's a lot of stuff they don't show you that actually can make your life a whole lot easier. So effectively, I believe that is one of the goals. I think that if you are a person, Black or white or otherwise, and you've been convinced to remain ignorant, you've been convinced to waste your time and not seek knowledge, then effectively that's by design because the goal is to keep you enslaved. You are a better slave when you are uninformed. It's very hard to enslave a really smart person. It's very hard to pull the wool over the eyes of somebody who can clearly see, who's clearly conscious. So if you want to know why we have financial consciousness training every morning at 10 a.m., it's because I want you to be able to see. I want you to see stuff. Okay, so let's keep going here. It says Davis wanted a statue of freedom on top of the Capitol dome that symbolized freedom for everyone except black people. The French Liberty Cap is on the freedom statue today. The statue was designed for $3,000 by Thomas Crawford in Rome, Italy in 1856. In 1863, it was cast in bronze in Bladensburg, Maryland, at a foundry owned by Clark Mills, whom the government paid $23,736. How about that? How about that for precision? Dr. Anderson got the receipts, don't he? Philip Reed, a slave owned by Mills, was given the responsibility of casting the Statue of Freedom and transporting it in sections to the east grounds of the nation's capital. Once the sections arrived, Reed and other slaves reassembled the Freedom to make certain that all of her pieces fit together. Assembling Freedom took 31 days. Thus, the Statue of Freedom was disassembled, hoisted, and reassembled by slaves. How about that? How about the irony of having slaves assembling your Statue of Freedom? Does anybody else see the irony in that? I think we should meditate on that for a minute, not just zip past that one. You had slaves assembling your Statue of Freedom, and nobody thought that was a little weird. Nobody thought that was just a teensy bit hypocritical. These slaves then hoisted the statue onto a pedestal in the Capitol dome so she could signal freedom for everyone. In 1863, the white superintendent in charge of building the nation's Capitol building quit, complaining that $8 per day was too little money. So the superintendent quit because he or she was getting, or it looks like he was getting paid too little money. Okay. But we're working for free. All right then. Okay. He was replaced by Philip Reed. Wait, was Philip Reed the slave? Wow. I'm reading this for the first time. So the person in charge of building the nation's Capitol building quit because they were only getting paid $8 a day. So they were replaced by Philip Reed, a slave. Did y'all catch that? He was replaced by Philip Reed, who supervised the construction. Reed was just one of hundreds of black slaves and freedmen who helped build the U.S. Capitol, the White House, and other monuments, including the Statue of Liberty. We built this. We literally built this country. Like most slaves, Reed received no money, no praise, no plaudits, or no plaques. Nothing. Clark Mills, Reed's owner, the owner who didn't do the work, was paid for Reed's labor. So Reed did the work. Mills, his owner, got the money. Y'all following this? Black labor, white wealth. How about that for a book title? Thank you, Dr. Anderson. He did write a book at that title. All these books are at powernomics.com. I hope you all will support this man. Please do that. Clark Mills, Reed's owner, was paid for Reed's labor. Later on, European laborers and mechanics were imported to assist in the construction. So they brought in European laborers and mechanics. They brought in immigrants. They were paid market wages. When the work of the slaves was done, the U.S. Department of the Treasury paid the whites who owned the slave laborers. So immigrants were paid, regular laborers were paid, and slave owners were paid. Your ancestors were not paid. That needs to be added to all the receipts that should go into the reparations compensation because that's part of your generational wealth. When the work of the slaves was done, the U.S. Okay, I already said this. Archive volunteers recently examined the construction and pay records and compiled a list of Capitol workers. They found 122 Negro hires referenced by their first names. Although most of the slaves were common laborers, the archive researchers were surprised to find the names of black stonecutters, black carpenters, and black painters. So you weren't just unskilled labor, you were highly skilled labor that was not paid. Slavery had produced an artisan class that worked on the Capitol building as well as in private construction projects. Thank you, Dr. Claude Anderson, for giving us yet another reason to be pissed off and to tell these people that y'all need to cut us our check. So this is the fact. How many of you, give me a yes or no, how many of you learned any of this in school? How many of y'all went to like a public school? Did anybody, yes or no, did anybody go to a public school and get told all this about this significant, that there were 122 black people that worked on the Capitol, that they were doing skilled labor, stone cutters, carpenters, painters. Anybody seen the stone of the Capitol? It's very nicely cut stone. It's not crappy. Um, Anybody know that the owners got paid, but your ancestors did not? This is important, just this one section alone. And I don't want to read through this so quickly that we miss what's happening here. Like, this is heavy. This is big. Look at how important the Capitol is to this country. I mean, just January 6th, they raided the Capitol, right? That the Capitol is sacred. Sacred. So we built this. We did this. We did this. Let's keep going. Question 32. How was the 1954 school desegregation lawsuit switched from unequal funding to social integration? Ooh, this is good. This is good. I don't know where Dr. Anderson's going to go, but since he's my spiritual father, like we have a father-son relationship. So if you ever talk bad about Dr. Anderson, I might show up at your house and beat you up. I'm going to bet you that Dr. Anderson is going to dig into one key issue, that Dr. Anderson and people like him and Malcolm X and others, they never fell for this idea that somehow putting black kids next to white kids in school was going to magically make the black kids smarter. Dr. Anderson and people like him at that time, who they don't celebrate at your Martin Luther King Day breakfast at your local university, people like him, they never, ever, at any point, ever believed that white people sprinkle magical fairy dust out of their butts and make everyone smarter within a 2-mile radius. They never believed that sending black kids to school miles and miles and miles away from their house, where they could be abused every day and mistreated by the teachers and their classmates, they never fell for this myth that somehow these kids would be better off. So I'm willing to bet you that Dr. Anderson's going to advocate for something that I believe in too, that integration is not required for you to have similar resources, that black schools would have been better off if they simply made a mandate to require that they have the same amount of money, but that they could keep those black teachers that love those children. I know black teachers now that can't get access to black kids. Think about how crazy that is. I know black teachers who get into a school that's full of black kids. All the teachers are white. All the administrators are white. And then they fired the black teacher. I had a brother that came in and spoke one night. Last name was Muhammad. Please put his name in the chat if you know his name. And this brother said that in Chicago, one of the worst school systems ever, they are destroying black kids in this school system, ruining these kids, ruining these children. And he said that it wasn't Nuri Muhammad. Thank you, Janet, but it wasn't Nuri. It was another brother. And he said he said I was able to actually get results. He was getting the gang members to want to get together and play basketball. He was getting the boys on track, the girls on track, and they fired him, Abdul Muhammad. I think that was his name. It was Abdul or Ahmad. I don't want to mess his name up, but look it up. Look it up, please. Here we go. Abdul Muhammad. That's his name. Thank you very much for sharing that link. Yeah, I'm gonna grab the link. I'm gonna share this so y'all can go look at his petition. It is insane. It is absolutely insane. And so this to me this makes me furious. I'm absolutely furious about this. And I'm not just so furious about them for doing it. I'm more furious at us for accepting this. This is crazy. So what Dr. Anderson advocates for, which I believe that this is where he's going to get to in this conversation, is not that black kids just have to go to school with white people. You know, just like white people don't have to go to school with black people. White people don't wake up and say, "Oh my gosh, I need to make sure my child is in class with a black person so that they can, so they can get smarter." They don't do that. They don't need they don't go to Harvard and Yale and Stanford and say, "Gosh, well, where are the black people at? We need African Americans here." They don't they were doing fine, just fine without you. They're not banging down the door to get into your HBCUs like you're banging down the door to get into their schools. So ultimately, I think that equal resources is what you're looking for, not so much always integration. No, there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's not to say that segregation is always the answer. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying white people are terrible or I hate white people. I don't dislike anybody. I'm just saying that this integration idea is a white supremacist concept because it's somehow implying that your life is automatically better when you're mixed in with white folks. And I don't know if that's always true. So let me read this here. So Dr. Anderson says the 1954 U.S. Supreme Court's decision, the Brown versus Board of Education, was actually the culmination of several court battles filed by blacks, including significantly a case that began in 1953, Briggs versus Elliott. In Clarendon, this was in Clarendon, South Carolina. The public policy on education in effect in South Carolina and across the South at the time was separate but equal, which we know it wasn't equal. Because white schools were getting 4 to 5 times more funding than black schools, black parents filed suit, not because they quarreled with the fact that the schools were racially separated, but because the funding was not equal. See, there we go. That's like I said, that was my prediction. This is where Dr. Anderson's going with it. It wasn't that they were saying, "Oh my gosh, I really need to be next to a white person this morning." It was that the funding wasn't equal. So the NAACP joined the suit, and y'all have seen the. You can't. I don't trust the NAACP. I'm sorry if you're a member. No disrespect, but when you look up founders of look at the list of founders. I think there's two black people on there that were founders, and the other 4 or 5 are white. Um, White school officials attempting to head off the court's decision offered massive increases in state appropriations to equalize funding of black schools in a racially separate public school system. The offer was unexpected by the NAACP. So, wow, I didn't know this. So this says white school officials, because they didn't want the court decision, because they kind of wanted something similar. They were like, "Yeah, we don't need to be around black people, right?" Which that doesn't offend me. I don't care what you think about me. They offered a lot of money. They said, "Look, we'll give you money to keep your butt over there, keep your black ass over there," right? And I think that there were people that wanted to take the money. So he says the offer was unexpected by the NAACP. The organization was astonished that the state was willing to commit such enormous sums of money to Negro schools. How many of y'all knew this? Anybody know that they offered money, that they didn't even want this to become a lawsuit? How many of y'all, did anybody else know this? I did not know this. The unexpected offer created a major difference between what the black parents in Clarendon, South Carolina wanted for their children and what the NAACP wanted. Surprise, surprise, fake black leadership. The NAACP rejected the state's offer and the initial intent of the black parents. So you get these Negro intermediaries that literally their main job is to take whatever the people want and to deflect it in another direction. That's what they do. That's consistent. That happens in all the elections. That happens anytime money's on the table. That happened. Anybody remember that for that silly little man in San Francisco where they were talking about reparations and he was some preacher in San Francisco that said, "No, we don't need cash payments. We want government programs." I don't remember the guy's name. His name was Amos something, or it's one of those old fashioned names. And I was like, "Man, somebody please pull that guy off the stage. Like, just like don't make me have to come out there and fight this man." Like this guy, and he claimed to be a black leader. I don't know who appointed him in that space, but he was literally derailing all of the progress they'd made on reparations. Amos Brown. There we go. I knew his name was Amos or something. I'm sorry if you know Amos Brown. I'm sorry. But Amos, that was not a good look. That was not a good move. That was not intelligent at all. And really a committee of people that truly care about not just black people, but also the economic standing of black people is required to properly negotiate a deal like that. So he says here, let's keep reading. In his book, Plural But Equal, Blacks and Minorities in America's Plural Society, Dr. Harold Cruz comments on the devastating long-term effects of that short-sighted decision. So that decision by the NAACP to intervene was harmful to black people. So Dr. Harold Cruz has something to say. Let's see what he says. He says, the association, the NAACP, negated in advance the possibility of black political bases being fashioned around the important state function of public school funding and administration. Dr. Cruz further stated that when the NAACP advocated for full integration and rejected the Southern states' compromise gestures toward belated equalization of racially separate school systems, in effect, the NAACP had done black Americans a terrible disservice. The organization allowed school systems in southern states to place the physical and financial burdens of implementing school integrating on the backs of Black Americans. Interesting. So integration was on your back. I guess your child is the one that's going to get bused across town. I guess maybe that's where they're going. Let's see. Blacks lost. Okay, I see now. I have to stop for a minute because I think I see where he's going. This is another example of what happened when you lost your businesses. Dr. Anderson's going to go into this. He says blacks lost their educational buildings. They lost their vehicles, equipment, and so many school-related businesses. So it's like you meet somebody and you start dating a man or a woman that's abusive and controlling, and they pretty much convince you to sell everything that you own so you can go live with them. That's what it was. That's what it is. So you sell everything to go live with your abuser, and then they really have power over you because now you have nowhere to go. You have nothing that's actually yours. That's what it sounds like he's saying. So I thought it just happened with businesses. It sounds like he's saying this also happened with schools. So he says that they lost their educational buildings, vehicles, equipment, and so many school-related businesses. More importantly, they lost their educational careers, employment opportunities, and retirement funds. These white schools wasn't hiring no black teachers, but they were bringing in black students, which are an economic commodity. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get it? Are y'all hearing me on this? The children, when you look at school budgets, how many of y'all, anybody here in the educational system, anybody here an educator, you know that these budgets are based on the number of heads that you have in that freaking school. So when you're integrating the children, but you're not integrating the teachers and the counselors and the businesses and the contractors, that's a sucker's move. Where are you going to get your resources from? Next thing you know, you got a bunch of freaking unemployed black teachers and unemployed black contractors. Black people can't make money making textbooks and lunches for the kids. There's nothing for them. Oh, but we want your children because black children are a commodity. They are an economic commodity. They are a cash cow. We can make money off of them. How crazy do you have to be? See, they want us in the car, but they don't want us to drive the car. They don't want us to own the car. They might even let us sit in the front seat of the car, but we can't drive it. We don't own it. We don't decide where that car is going to go. So they want you in their institutions. If you're profitable, if there's a benefit, they want you in their penitentiaries because they want you as the inmate. They don't want you to be one of the businesses that benefits from the penitentiary. They want you in their school, but they don't want you running the school. They don't want you making money from the school, but they want you in the school because they can make money from you. They want you to be a consumer in their shop. They want you shopping in their mall, but they don't want you owning the businesses in the mall. Do you understand? They want you renting apartments. They want you to have jobs because the people that have the jobs, they're doing the work. They're just like the slaves, but they're not actually benefiting from owning the business. Do you understand? They want you to be the horse, but they never want you to be the jockey. And what this has done long term is it has created a culture where you're not interested in the act of institution building because it's too hard. That's why you got all these dumbass millionaire athletes that are too scared to start a professional sports league. But your crazy butt just signed a $200 million contract, and your 10 of your homeboys are worth 50, 100 million. But none of y'all ever sat down and said, why can't we create our own version of the NFL? Well, why? Well, because your brain does not go past the second floor of the building. You can't go to the penthouse because you're only able to go to the second floor. I'm not making fun of you, and I sound mean when I say dumbass, and I apologize. I have to apologize for that because I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. But it angers me because Jerry Jones and all the white boys are in the penthouse, and your brain can't go past the second floor. Why? Well, because nobody taught you when you were a child how to build institutions of your own. No one gave you the discipline or the vision to do this. Where are the black visionaries that have money? Seriously, where are the black visionaries that can access capital that also can say, I see more than just the next 2 or 3 years down the line. I see something that's going to be amazing 20 or 30 years from now. There aren't that many. There are a few, but there aren't that many because you have a culture where you have a culture that is based in economic immaturity. I talk about this in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. Economic immaturity is where you come into an economic system and you're only thinking like a commodity or like a child. You're only thinking about money that you can spend, items that you can buy, things that you can rent, people that you can work for. You're not thinking about the second floor or the second level of that process, which is where you are the owner, you are the boss, you are the producer, you run the infrastructure. Why do we not do that? Well, some people don't want to do it because it's too hard, or some people don't want to do it because it ain't flashy. Right? You can't be some 40-year-old rapper who's irresponsibly, throwing his genitals in every direction and just acting the fool and embarrassing himself at the age of 40, 45 years old, Instagram flexing. You actually have to have the disposition of a boss. You have to have the maturity of a leader. You have to learn the soft skills required for delegation and organization management and have conservatism in your space as opposed to this buffoonery that we see where you see lots of celebrities, especially over the age of 30, 35, 40, 45 years old, who should be institution builders, who are still trying to compete with teenagers, still sagging their pants, still screaming and hollering and beefing on Instagram and just literally embarrassing themselves. So really what Dr. Anderson is referring to is that we got rope-a-doped because they said, no, we'll take your children. Reluctantly, we'll take your children and make money from your children, but we want to leave the adults at home. And then what we're also going to do to your children is we're going to make sure that while they're with us, we're going to give them our values, tell them what we think is important, educate them on how important, how significant we are. We're going to tell them nothing about you and how great you are, because how could you be great? You're all sitting at home with no businesses and no infrastructure, whereas we've got schools, we've got corporations, we're building rocket ships to Mars. Y'all ain't doing none of that. So we're going to tell your children how great we are so that your children will learn that the best thing that a black child can do is to grow up and abandon the black community. The most significant thing they can do is get as far away from the hood and their family as they can so they can come up by being surrounded by people who don't look like them. That's what the messaging is. So what I'm saying to you is that I believe that it's time for us to commit to doing grown-up stuff. Grown-up stuff is institution building. That's doing the hard work that was done by almost every major corporation in America. Started with somebody starting some little business in their garage, trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, and developing some sort of infrastructure that allowed for the employment of other people. Steve Jobs started Apple in his garage. Bill Gates started Microsoft in his garage. UPS was started by teenagers delivering packages on their bicycles. I could keep going on down the list. The McDonald's brothers started McDonald's and they figured out how to run one little restaurant and make hamburgers and French fries faster than anybody else. And then they learned how to scale. They learned what structure looks like. See, you got to understand this. See, and these are the things that you got to be taught when you're young. Some of us, it's a little bit too late, but for the kids, it's not. Let's keep going. More importantly, they lost their educational careers, employment opportunities, and retirement funds. The effect of the NAACP's action was to convert the original goal of seeking equal funding and resources from the state to seeking instead school integration. Historian Benjamin Quarles expressed a similar assessment of the NAACP's commitment to social integration at any cost. Dr. Quarles wrote about the South Carolina funding offer and the thinking of the NAACP in his book, The Negro in the Making of America. He observes that the state of South Carolina's huge financial offer would have rectified the issue of unequal funding. But the NAACP was so strongly committed to integration as a policy that it changed the focus of the Clarendon lawsuit. So they said, don't give us the money. We want to be next to white folks. That's the real win. It shifted the emphasis of the suit from funding and resources to eradicating racial segregation through physically mixing and integrating the races. The U.S. Supreme Court then ruled, as the NAACP had asked, that black children must attend school together with white children, and all of the vestiges of Jim Crow segregation must be dismantled with all deliberate speed. Dismantling meant dismantling black schools. That is what happened across the board, from black elementary schools to colleges and universities. This is what is in this book. I'm reading Dr. Anderson's book, The Black History Reader, powernomics.com. You can get your own copy. I hope that you do. According to Quarles, the NAACP's opposition to segregation meant it was also philosophically opposed to separate but equal black neighborhood schools. This civil rights organization assessed that neighborhood schools were nothing more than the product of white imposed segregation and needed to be eradicated. Like, why in the world would black people want to exist when they can't be around white folks? Quarles said that the NAACP felt the nation could only achieve quality education by putting white and black children in close physical proximity, so it pushed for court-enforced school busing, which was traumatic as hell for those poor kids. An untold number of blacks disagreed with the NAACP and wanted quality schools in black communities. The NAACP's Legal Defense Fund, however, which included a large number of well-meaning white lawyers, was intent on achieving social integration no matter what it cost black America. This is for any white liberals that are in the room. I know sometimes white people spy on me, and it's okay. You don't have to spy. I don't have anything against you, I promise. For the white liberals in the room, this is paternalism. Paternalism is where you think you're helping us by teaching us how to be more like you. I don't really want to be like you. I want to be like myself. I want to be the best version of myself. And so this paternalism, well-intended white lawyers pretty much said, no. The Negroes, they don't want to have their own schools. I mean, my goodness, what would a Negro look like running a school? They need us to run the schools for them. And what we'll do is we'll create quality schools where they get to sit next to our children, because clearly that's going to make them better people. There was no such argument made to bring white kids into black schools. There was no such argument. Let's keep going. The costs of social integration were enormous and so fundamentally destructive that blacks will never totally recover. Black schools were closed down. Black teachers and principals were fired. Large numbers of black students were assigned to special education classes, and black students were bused as unwanted minority guests into white schools and communities. How many of you ever noticed? Has anybody been to the public schools and noticed how many black boys, especially, are put into special ed? Has anybody noticed that? How many black males they put in special ed? And do you understand the depth of the damage that that does to the black community and the black family? That they are taking masses and masses, millions and millions of your supposed fathers, husbands, future leaders, and making sure that they are as dumb as possible. They are as unprepared as possible to compete in the world. They can't balance a checkbook, can't hardly count money, can't spell, how the hell are you gonna be a father and lead a family when you don't know how to do nothing? Do you understand the damage that's being done here? You raising your daughter, you trying to teach her things. Her husband is not prepared for anything, doesn't know how to do anything. It's crazy. And then they end up on the internet and they run around complaining about how black women won't submit to their leadership. But half y'all fools can't lead nothing. Some of these guys are not ready. They're just not. So this is what I see. This is the result. I spoke at this school one time. I spoke at the school one time in Syracuse. And I remember I went to this school. It was a middle school. And they had all black kids and a few Hispanic kids, and all the teachers were white. I'm not kidding. I spoke to the seventh grade. Every single teacher was white. 80-90% of the students were black. And I remember that day because I remember seeing a little black boy that was in detention, and he reminded me of myself because I was always in detention, and he was in special ed. And I tried to talk to him, but he was so distraught that he wouldn't speak to me. And it made me very sad because I was trying my best to talk to this little kid. And in this school, I went in and I sat down and I talked to the black boys that were in special ed, and the class was full of black boys. And I just talked to them, the way I would talk to anybody else in my family. And before long, it was a great conversation. You know, they were at that time, I just written my first book. It was called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About College. And I was telling them about how college is a great benefit to your life. This is when I was in my mid 30s, early 30s. And they were all talking about college and all talking about, whatever we were talking about. And after it was done, I went to sit down with all the teachers in the seventh grade. And one of the teachers, a well-intended lady, she said, Dr. Watkins, I don't know if you've noticed, but all of us are white. And I said, yeah, I have noticed that. And she said, we'd like to know what do you think about our school? And I said, well, I said, to be honest with you, your school reminds me of a mix between a penitentiary and an insane asylum. If I had to come into this building every day, I'd be very depressed. It's a very ugly building, and it's very damp and dark and scary. And I said also, um, I think that you being white females, I'm not really sure how you can really connect to these boys the way I can connect to the boys because you're not a black male. And I said you need black male teachers in order for you to really connect to these children. And I don't know if they took the advice or not, but I remember that experience because that experience was a microcosm of just what's happening all across the country. Remember, economics is very competitive. So the same way you're competing for jobs, you're competing for resources, you're competing for money, whatever, other people are competing for those same jobs. So if you are foolish enough to let somebody else run all the institutions in America, then guess what? They're going to have all the jobs, they're going to get all the contracts, they're going to take care of themselves before they take care of you. This is not, and of course, we can attribute that some of that to racism for sure, but a lot of it's just human nature. A lot of it is that if you don't learn how to compete and learn how to be a little bit stingy with your resources, to harness your power in an effective way, then you'll never have anything. They're never going to give that to you. They're never going to do it because it's the right thing to do. They're never going to do it just because you complain. That's just going to, you're just wasting your energy. You have to be strategic. Because if you're not, then this is going to continue forever. And the consequences are huge because these boys, especially, and the girls too, that they're putting in special ed, they get out into the world, they can't do nothing. You can't build a multi-million dollar corporation with somebody who doesn't even know how to read. Or it may, I mean, maybe it's possible, but it's very, very difficult, much more difficult. So these kids got to be ready early. Um, this is why I believe that Black people should be educating our own children, creating our own jobs, and supporting Black-owned businesses. That is the Black core of three in the Black Business School. This panther behind me is that's our logo. That's my grandmother Felicia. I bring her with me everywhere I go, and I believe this to the core of my soul. I believe that this is our solution, and so part of the reason I talk to you every single day. Again, we do financial consciousness training every morning at 10 a.m. and I'm with you every single morning because my goal is to make sure that I use every inch of this PhD that I have to educate as many of you as possible so that you can be informed on the economics of this country because the economics is where the power lies. The economics will explain a lot. If you want to understand things that happen in America, all you got to do is follow the money. If you follow the money, then you'll understand everything. Okay. So let me keep reading here. Let me jump back into this book. And if you want to join us for the financial consciousness training, I mentioned earlier texting the word money to 87948. If you text money to 87948, I'll send you an invitation and you can join us. We do this every morning at 10 a.m. And also don't forget we do have the All Black National Convention that's going to be in Lombard, Illinois, right outside Chicago, October 25th to the 27th. We've already reserved the Westin and everything. You can go to allblacknationalconvention.com if you want to reserve your pass. And then also we're doing a stock options summit in Los Angeles, April 19th. So if you go to stockoptionssummit.com, you can take a look at that. I think that's a great way to get off the plantation. A lot of our students really are quitting their jobs. This is not me making things up. Just ask them. They're probably in the chat. And if you are in the chat and you're quitting your job or you're doing better financially because of what we're doing, I hope you'll take a moment and say something so that people will know that I'm not making things up. Just say, hey, I'm doing better, or hey, here's how much more money I'm making. Just something like that. Because I want people to know this. I want things to organically flow through word of mouth, not because people think that I'm marketing something that isn't true. There's no myths, there's nothing to hide. So feel free to take a look at that. All right, so let me keep going here. All right. So Let's see here. All right. So Dr. Benjamin Quarles observes that once the NAACP made a commitment to the policy of integration and the movement got underway, the organization did not want the white power structure to actually make good on its policy of separate but equal. So even though they promised separate but equal, they didn't actually want them to deliver that. Black leadership did not want a dual system, even if it did allow blacks to operate and control quality competitive schools within their own communities. That's that paternalism. They didn't want their own car. They didn't want to own the car and drive the car. They wanted to be in the white man's car because, again, that's white supremacy. That is what we inherently believe in. So it says here, quote, the NAACP realized that providing Negro schools with better buildings, better equipment, and better salaries for teachers and changing the title college to university would only strengthen Jim Crow by establishing gilded citadels of segregation manned by Negro teachers and administrators, like, I don't know, like maybe, I don't know, like the Black Business School, maybe, who would have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo in racial education. How about that? How about black people teaching other black people? How much fun would that be? Black economic control over well-funded education systems in their own communities could have been the beginning of real unity and power and self-determination, and could have provided a path up and out of Jim Crow segregation. So owning institutions, that's where the power is. That's really where you are freed and liberated. That's not just true on a collective basis. That's true on an individual basis. I've had my PhD for 20 years. I've been a professor a long time. I was never as powerful and as free uh, when I worked at Syracuse University as I was when I created the Black Business School. It took a lot more work. It took some different skill sets. I had to find a way to connect with all of you, right? I had to do some, I had to be creative, but it doesn't compare. There's no university anywhere that could hire me away from this seat that I'm in right now. There's no, you could literally offer me the chance to be the president of Harvard University. I would have no problem saying thank you, but no thank you, because nothing compares to the freedom of having your own institution shaped in an image that is connected to the core of who you are. So I believe that the best gift we can give our children is the ability to manifest, the ability to become what I refer to. I refer to this in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, to become economic gods, where you can manifest the reality that you want to see. Instead of reacting to whatever your boss wants to do, you decide what you want to do because you are the boss. Even being the boss of something small is so much better than being the slave of something big. Did you hear what I said? Being the boss of something small feels so much better than being a slave of something big. But that requires enough self-esteem for you to say that, even if I'm not validated by other people, what I got in front of me is the most precious thing I could ever have. Like there's no, when I talked to the student earlier today, he was talking about quitting his job and everything so he could spend time with his kids. And I said, yeah, I mean, look at the opportunity you have. Oh my God, you've got 4 kids under the age of 6. That's an empire in the making. Imagine how amazing that family is going to be once they have access to daddy 10 hours a day and daddy's teaching them values that are committed to pouring back into the family. Oh my Lord. This is an awesome responsibility, but it's an amazing opportunity. Those kids are going to be so loyal to you that all that labor they would have gave to the white man, all that labor they would have gave to corporations, they're going to pour that back into the family business. You're going to kill it. You're absolutely going to kill it. So this to me is the dream. This is what I want to see. I'm not saying that this ain't even got nothing to do with white folks. Integration, segregation, do whatever you want. I'm talking about having a capital base and a power base that is yours. When I say the words capital base, y'all have heard me use the term capital base. Capital base is just like a power base. Everybody needs an anchor. So the question becomes, what is your anchor? And here's the thing. If you have no anchor, then you're like a leaf that has no anchor. What's a leaf that has no anchor going to do? It's going to float around the wind. It has no power. But if you put a rock on top of the leaf and you say this is where this leaf is anchored, then the wind blows and the leaf doesn't move. The leaf sits right there. It says, no, I'm good. I'm right here. This is where I'm at. So I want you to pick your place where that is going to be your base. You have to pick your place that's going to be your anchor. You have to have a space that is your stronghold. All y'all veterans that are in here, all my veterans, my soldiers, former soldiers, you understand the importance of having a base. What is your, so in military terms, we talk about a military base. And the base is a signal of strength. You can't go to war if you don't have military bases, right? So what is your capital base? Where's your source of strength? Where's that place you can go to where you hold rank in that space and can't nobody mess with you? And if you know anything from when you were little and you used to play tag, where was the place you were safest when you were playing tag? Where did you go when you wanted to be safe when you played tag? Somebody answer me in the chat. If I'm running around and I don't want to get tagged and I want to be safe, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get back to base. If I'm playing baseball, what am I trying to do? Trying to get to home base. So if you get to base and you have a base and you have the base and the space and the place that is yours where your power is located, that is how you fight off not just white supremacy, but you can fight off any adversary at that point because they dare not come to your base and try to mess with you. If you are a Crip and I'm a Blood, I'm not coming to the section of town that is designed as your base. There's certain streets I'm not going to go to because I know that I'm going to be outnumbered. Everybody needs a base. So what integration did, why integration has you feeling weak and shuffling and scared and confused and lost and stranded and hopeless is because it took away your base. It diluted you. It diluted you. So now that you're diluted and you have no base, you're floating around in every direction looking for any and everybody that can give you some semblance of a tiny bit of security, but you don't feel security because you have no base. You have no emotional security because you have no base. You have no financial security because you have no base. They took away your family. Your family would have been your base. So that's exactly what they wanted for you. They don't want you to have a base. People that have a base are strong. Like I am based in this chair. I am based in my family. I'm based in the Black Business School. I'm based right here with y'all. I don't care about going out of this space. This is my base. People can talk crazy. They can be mad at me or whatever. But try to mess with me at the All Black National Convention where I'm surrounded by my base. I'm surrounded by the people who understand where I'm coming from. No, we're holding rank in that space. So what I'm saying to you is you ain't got to control the whole world. You just got to pick a little tiny part of the world and establish that to be your base. You don't have to have all the money. You just have to have a little bit of the money, and that becomes your capital base. Because a base gives you strength. A ship, when they put down the anchor, they're sitting there, they're pulling down their base. You have to do that because right now you're diluted. You're looking for love in all the wrong places. You're chasing around people that don't like you, looking for opportunities where they don't exist. And then wondering why you have no power. Well, you don't have any power because you don't have a power base. Any politician talks extensively about their base. What is our donor base? What is our voter base? Well, where's your base? I want you to just think about that a little bit. I'm going to read a little bit more, but I want us to really sit on that. I want you to really think about that. Because what I want you to really understand, that concept of the base, that if you understand that thoroughly, that's one of your keys to liberation. Do you understand that the reason that you have to get up and go to work with people who hate you every day is because nobody ever gave you a capital base? That if somebody had invested just a few dollars a week for you from, say, the 1970s or the 1980s, a grandparent or something, that you would have enough capital in your capital base that you literally would not have to go to work. But you have to go to work because you got no base. So if you love your children, then you'll build a base. Number one, the base may start with family. If my family is all on code and we love each other and we have each other's back, well, that's part of the base. They know that no matter what the world does to them, they can always go home to mama, daddy, sisters, brothers. They got backup. Then you establish that financial base. You make those investments. Again, blackwealthmasterplan.com. That's where the $5 a day plan is. Blackwealthmasterplan.com. It's free. You establish the capital base. And then you do a few other things. And a person that has a base, I firmly believe that a Black person that really has established bases in terms of capital and cultural, that person isn't somebody that gets kicked around by racism because they honestly don't even care what white people think about them anymore. That's my 2 cents. That's my belief. Let me keep reading. All right. I'm gonna read a little bit more, then we're gonna be done for today. My wife cooked some good food. I can smell it. I'm gonna go eat her food. All right, so let's keep going here. On page 104 of the Black History Reader, Dr. Claude Anderson's book, you can get it at powernomics.com. He talks about how the NAACP turned down the money and they wanted integration. And so it says here, this was a case of the road not taken. The NAACP assumed that goodness was somehow a quality in whiteness and did not see the goodness or value in blackness. So they felt that black people being next to white people would just make life better and make us into better people. Its end vision was of a black America that was dependent on and inextricably intertwined with whites. Again, no base, diluted, integrated. Now, 50 years down the path, the NAACP chose in South Carolina, the evidence is in. Integration was an end in itself and was as far as the NAACP could see. Blacks are now scattered under an illusion of social integration, even though blacks and whites were more residentially segregated in 2017 than they were in 1954. The imprudent social integration decision misled blacks into giving up all of the positive advantages of segregation and propelled the entire race down a path toward group destruction. The social integration process destroyed black communities and made blacks uninvited guests in what whites and other groups owned and controlled. So your neighborhoods are bad and they don't want you in their neighborhoods. Guests are expendable and have little power in dealing with their hosts. Schools teach the values and goals of those who are in authority. Black parents should seek to control their schools and require that the education of their children be based on reality. An appropriate educational experience for black children will be to recognize the unique background that black children bring to school. Black children need basic skills, but they also need to learn the value of blackness and how to contribute to building a black community that is strong and self-sufficient. In the 1954 Supreme Court's Brown versus Education decision had far-reaching effects and unintended consequences. It reduced black students to the position of being guests in schools, businesses, and communities owned and controlled by whites who assign racial inferiority onto blacks. The decision itself addressed the separate schools issue, but the NAACP extended the Brown decision beyond public schools and into every aspect of the private and public sector. It was a fatal blow. What happened to black schools also happened to traditional black communities, businesses, and institutions. They disappeared, and blacks joined the unemployment rolls. The NAACP apparently meant well, but could not envision the ruinous impact of social integration on black America. The decision established an inappropriate model of self-destruction for blacks who, no matter how hard they strive, may never regain what they lost in the integration process. So what Dr. Anderson is saying here is that this idea that being next to white people somehow magically makes our lives better was a huge mistake. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of someone who is a bad parent. And let's say you're a bad parent and you got this beautiful daughter, and your daughter there's your daughter is doing well and she's taking care of herself and growing up, and then a man comes along and he's a prince or something. He's rich. And you want your daughter to marry the rich man. But let's say at the same time, the rich man is a rapist who beats his wife or beats women. And you know this, right? You know that he's a rapist. You know he beats women, and you know he's going to beat your daughter, but you force your daughter to marry him, even though she doesn't want to. And so your daughter goes to marry him, and he immediately takes her away from her home, and he beats her and rapes her and makes her life into a living hell. And then after a while, he kicks her out of the house when she acts up and she has nowhere to go. That's what I see when I see what happened to black people. Remember that integration is a problem, not because integration itself is always a bad idea. Integration was a problem because the people and the individuals and institutions you were integrating with had been strategically designed for several centuries to literally hate your guts, to kill you, destroy you, and ruin you in every way. So you were, the NAACP is like that mother who thinks they know what's best for the baby, and you're saying, Mom, I don't want to go live with this man, and but yet your mother says, no, 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 you need to marry the rich man. And so that's what you do. You give up everything you've got going on. Everything that you were building is going to go to waste. Everything you were doing doesn't matter anymore. Why? Well, because now you're married to the prince, and all that matters is what he's got going on. Now you're dedicating your life not to the things you want to do, but to the things that he wants for you. And the problem is that this man does not love you. It'd be different if we integrated into a space where we were loved and admired, right? It would be different. I mean, imagine this, right? So if integration, let's say somehow magically, let's say we lived in a world where everyone loved Black people. I mean, really loved us and respected us and gave us the opportunities we deserved. Well, in that case, integration is a wonderful thing, right? It could be good. So it's, you think about it, just like the example with the prince. If the prince loves her and admires her and respects her and wants the what's best for her, then marriage is a wonderful thing. But toxic marriage is far worse than being single. And the problem is that you integrated into a toxic, abusive marriage. And the problem in that marriage is just like any other abusive marriage. Even when you say you want to leave, they don't want you to leave. Your abuser really wants you to stay so they can keep on abusing you. And that's what happens. They want us to stay. When we start talking about Black independence, Black liberation, Black owned businesses, what happens? White folks start getting mad. Like, well, why would you do that? That's racist. That's the no, it's because you're not treating us right. This ain't fair. This we deserve better than this. We need to renegotiate our position in this whole integration thing. And I encourage you to really think about this and process this and what does that look like for the next generation? That's what we got to think about. I'm not talking about 2024. I'm talking about 2044. Talking about 2054, 2064, 2074. What's that supposed to look like? That's what I'm preparing for. I'm not preparing for this year. I'm preparing for 20 years down the line. 20 years down the line, I am begging you, I'm telling you, you got to get those children ready and they got to show up prepared to stand on their own. They got to be prepared to build. They have to have a different skill set. There must be a takeover. We are taking over all this. I'm taking over the educational process. I'm taking over all this because you're not gonna beat up on me. I'm not your boy. This and neither are you. So that's it. I'm done. Thank you all for hanging out with me. We'll be back again next week. Tomorrow morning, we do financial consciousness training, 10 a.m. Eastern. If you'd like an invitation, text the word money to 87948, and I'll send you a link in the morning to come to consciousness training. Also, what else? Thursday night, Dr. Christina Parks will be here. You should get an email to join her if you'd like to join her. She does health as wealth. And then on Friday, we've got Ace Chapman and Michael Edwards. Michael does Forex. Ace is teaching us how to acquire businesses with no money down. And also, those of you that do stock options in the Prime program, we're going to have another meeting in about another week and a half. And I picked some stocks that you guys can take a look at as well. So we have a lot of stuff going on in the Black Business School. So feel free to take a look at all that. All right. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Bless you. Love.